All right, so today we're looking at an open source project with a claim that is, well, truly mind bending. What if you could predict anything? The project is called MiroFish, and it's built on a pretty revolutionary idea. Let's dive in.
Just think about that for a second. What could you do if you had a tiny parallel digital world? A place where you could drop in a scenario, say a stock market trend, a new policy, or heck, even the plot of a novel, and just see what happens. Well, that's exactly the question MiroFish is trying to answer.
So, what is MiroFish really? You can think of it as a whole new generation of AI prediction engine. It doesn't just look at past data to guess a trend. No, it builds a complex world from the ground up and simulates behavior using something called multi-agent technology.
And it all kicks off with what the creators call seed information. Now, this can be literally anything. A news report, a financial analysis, a draft of a new law, even a chapter from a fantasy book. The system takes that seed and uses it to construct a complete, high-fidelity digital world.
This quote from the creators just nails the project's mission, doesn't it? It's not about being a psychic for the fun of it. It's about creating a totally risk-free environment where you can test ideas, stress test strategies, and make better decisions before they have any real-world consequences.
Okay, so how in the world do you build a parallel universe inside a computer? Well, the secret sauce here is a field of AI that actually takes its cues directly from nature. You know how you see a flock of birds move together, or how an ant colony works with perfect coordination? There's no single leader calling the shots, right? But they create this incredibly complex, intelligent group behavior. That's swarm intelligence. MiroFish uses that exact same idea, but with thousands of individual AI agents. And these worlds aren't just simple little models. We're talking about simulations filled with thousands of these intelligent agents. Each one is unique. They have their own memories, their own personalities, their own logic, and they just interact. They form social groups, they evolve over time, all on their own. It's like a genuine digital society in a bottle.
I know, this all sounds incredibly complex, almost like science fiction. But the developers have actually broken it all down into a really clear 5-step process that takes you from a simple idea to a fully interactive simulation.
So here's the breakdown. First, the system reads your seed info and builds what's called a knowledge graph. That's basically the memories and personalities for the agents. Then it sets up the world and its rules. Step 3, you hit start and the agents are let loose to live their digital lives. After it runs, a special report agent dives in, analyzes everything that happened, and gives you a detailed prediction. And here's my favorite part. You can actually jump into that world and have a conversation with any of the agents to ask them why they did what they did.
Okay, so the theory is amazing, but does this thing actually work? Well, the project has already put out a couple of fascinating case studies that show off just how versatile this engine can be. For the first example, they didn't pick something easy. They tackled a famous literary mystery, a challenge that needs more than just data analysis. It needs to understand character, plot, and themes. So they fed the engine the first 80 chapters of the classic Chinese novel Dream of the Red Chamber. The original ending was lost centuries ago, so it's a huge mystery. MiroFish basically created a digital world based on the book, simulated what would happen next with all the characters, and came up with a new ending that was remarkably plausible and totally consistent with the story's themes.
All right, so from classic literature, let's jump to a very, very real-world problem. How do you predict how a public opinion crisis is going to unfold?
For this one, they gave the system real data about a public relations event at Wuhan University. The goal was to see if the engine could predict how public opinion would shift over time. And the result? It actually worked. It successfully simulated the trajectory of the crisis, which shows its massive potential as a tool for anyone in policy or PR. And it's not just us who think this is cool. The wider developer community is definitely taking notice. The project has already rocketed past 32,000 stars on GitHub, which is a huge sign of interest and excitement.
And for you tech folks out there wondering what's under the hood, it's mostly Python for the AI brain on the back end and Vue for the user interface on the front end. So, a pretty modern and accessible stack.
So, what does this all mean for us? Where is this headed? Well, the creators see this technology really branching out into two huge but very different paths. One for the big stage, and one that's a lot more personal. And this really lays out that dual vision perfectly. On the one hand, at the macro level, you've got this incredible laboratory for governments and big companies to test policies and manage crises. But on the other hand, at the micro level, for you and me, it's a creative sandbox. You could use it to see what would happen if a historical event went differently, or finish your own stories, or just play around with ideas in a way we've never been able to before.
The bottom line is, tools like MiroFish aren't really science fiction anymore. They bring up some huge questions about how we understand our world and how we make decisions, and it really leaves me wondering, if you had this power right at your fingertips, what's the very first question